Hello, everyone. So we're continuing with some of the halachot of Tisha B'Av. Maybe before we continue what we were talking about last night, I'll just say a few words about havdalah on Motzei Shabbat and Sunday night. A lot of people have been asking. We did send out written guidelines today, and I assume they'll go out with the Hanasi highlights as well. But so what do we do? So ordinarily, first of all, on every Motzei Shabbat, so we have havdalah with words, and we have havdalah over a course. Really, you really need to do, the Gemara talks about how there was certain times when people could not afford. Everybody would have a cup of wine on Motzei Shabbat, and therefore Chachamim said you can do havdalah with just in tefillah, just by saying that we say Atachon Antanu, say Baruch HaMavdil, and that was enough. And then at different times it was added in, it was brought back the havdalah over the course, and it was made a standard practice that we always do havdalah over a cup of wine, as well as the havdalah that we say in tefillah. So this Motzei Shabbat, we still say the havdalah in tefillah, which is Atachon Antanu, which is the paragraph we add in the Amidah. Which was that before that, and you'll see we're davening Maariv a little bit later, in order to give people a chance to prepare. One needs to change one's shoes and change one's clothes before coming back to shul. So at the time, at the end of Shabbat, one would say the words Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'chol. Once one has said that, one is allowed to perform melacha. The truth that's true for any Motzei Shabbat, right? But until you've made havdalah, you can't eat or drink. That's not really a problem for most of us on Tisha B'Av because we aren't eating or drinking. One says Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'chol. And regarding the rest of havdalah, so ordinarily we have really 4 brachot. We have the bracha of Borei Agafen over grape juice. We have Borei Minei B'Samim over spices, right? We have Borei over the cat, the bracha of havdalah. So on this Motzei Shabbat, the only bracha that we say is Borei Esh. We take a candle, we say Borei Esh by itself. That's it, nothing else. And then on Sunday night, after the fast comes out, we do the rest of havdalah. What's the rest of havdalah? So we don't do the spices. Spices are omitted completely on this week, but we candle we've already said. So we have a cup of grape juice, and we say the bracha of Borei Agafen, and we say the bracha of Hamavdil ben Kodesh L'chol, etc. The full bracha. One does not say the introductory psukim. Those are psukim which have a celebratory nature. In any event, once it's postponed, past Motzei Shabbat, we don't say those psukim. So that is how we do havdalah. So Motzei Shabbat, we say Borei Esh. We say Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'chol before performing any melacha. Borei Esh we'll say in shul as well. So if somebody forgot or somebody missed it, they'll be able to hear the bracha there. Then Sunday night, at the end of the fast, we say Borei Agafen and Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'chol. We'll be doing that in shul as well. We can also say it at home, and that's it. And there is no psamim. What about? And one cannot eat or drink until one has said havdalah, with the exception of water. On Sunday night, if one's allowed to drink water before hearing havdalah. If a woman is waiting at home for her husband to come back from Maariv and it's taking a very, very long time, so don't take a long time. You should get back soon so that you can make havdalah for your wives. But if it's, first of all, she's allowed to drink water, and second of all, in this scenario, so poskim right that generally it's a safek whether a woman should be making havdalah for herself or not, but if it's taking a long time, she's very weak and she needs to eat, and she can make havdalah in that case. Okay, somebody who's ill, somebody who is not fasting on Tisha B'Av would have to make havdalah before eating and drinking on Tisha B'Av. So should a person, we could have had a discussion here, should a person wait until the time that they have to start eating before making havdalah, or should they make havdalah immediately on Motzei Shabbat? Immediately on Motzei Shabbat, one who is ill, one who is not allowed to fast, one knows they'll be eating and drinking, they can say, they should say havdalah. We spoke before, when we say havdalah, whenever we do havdalah during the 9 days, so there's a question, what beverage do we use? Because generally speaking, we shouldn't drink wine or grape juice during the 9 days. Based on various factors we've discussed, we'd say we'd use grape juice on Motzei Shabbat. On Tisha B'Av itself, so it's preferable to use Chayma Medina, so to use fruit juice or something else. So if not to have grape juice, if no one has nothing else, only has grape juice, one can use that. That's if one is ill and one needs to eat, and one needs to make havdalah on Tisha B'Av itself. Okay, so that's essentially in terms of havdalah. We started talking last night about learning Torah on Tisha B'Av. We said Talmud Torah, which is Mesameach. Talmud Torah, which brings you joy, is going to be forbidden. So most of the sections of Torah that we ordinarily learn, we cannot learn. And even those sections which we can, if it's learning that's very delving very deeply into it and understanding the Sfarot and coming up with Chidushim, that kind of learning should also be avoided on Tisha B'Av. We saw that essentially it's the things that deal with suffering, it's things that deal with mourning, things related to the day. So we mentioned last night the Prakim in Tanakh, which are permitted to learn. He says, yeah, but when it comes to the Gemara and the Midrashim, so we have the Agadot HaChurban of Masechet Gittin, right? The story of Kamsan, Bar Kamsan, a number of different stories there dealing with the Churban. That one is allowed to study those passages. The Midrash of Eicha Rabbah, but we skip over the Midrashim which talk about Nechama, talk about Kamsan. And the third parak of Masechet Moed Katan, which deals with the laws of mourning, that one is also allowed to learn. And the Gemara at the end of Masechet Tanit, which deals with Tisha B'Av. Also halachot of Bein HaMetzarim, of Tisha B'Av, of Avelut, of mourning, all those things one is allowed to learn. And one is also allowed to learn Sifrei Musar, words of which are going to give you rebuke, and words are going to make you think of how you can improve and what you've been doing wrong, and how you can fix yourself. That one is allowed to learn in order to awaken oneself to tshuva. There is a discussion here in the Poskim, because those books contain different psukim in them, and these are not the psukim that we're learning by ourselves, but it's generally accepted that is permitted. Now, what about other things? He writes here, secular books, you have a very exciting novel. You should not be reading that on Tisha B'Av. Perhaps you shouldn't be reading it at all, but you should certainly not be reading it on Tisha B'Av, because it is going to take our mind off the Avelut, and that is what we're meant to be doing. History books you're allowed to read. Things which relate to the Churban, and not just, of course, as we go through the Kinot, we talk about many of the things that have happened in Am Yisrael's past, recent past, not so recent past, sufferings, etc. That one is allowed to study. Okay. The next halakha that is unique to Tisha B'Av of all the days, and again comes from the halachot of Avelut. The only other place we find this is by an individual mourner, and that is regarding greetings. She'elat Shalom. Now, it's always very, very nice. At the end of Tisha B'Av, when you do Kiddush Levana, and the Shalom Aleichem, sometimes for the first time, 24 hours, you haven't been able to greet anybody, and it's there's something very, very special there. So it says here that Kshem Shavel Sheniftar Lo Echad Mikrovav Eino Sharui B'Shalom Asur B'Shelat Shalom. Shulchan Aruch says, since an Avel, a mourner, is not, he doesn't have peace, he's not in a state of Shalom, therefore he's not allowed to give Shalom to others, not allowed to greet other people. Kach Bayom She'anu Mitablim Al Churban Beit Mikdashenu Einenu Shim B'Shalom. That is our situation on the day of Tisha B'Av, when we are mourning for the Beit HaMikdash, and therefore, לכן אסור בתשעה באב לשאול בשלום, כלומר לומר שלום איש לרעהו. So you definitely can't say shalom to another person. The question comes up, what if the other person doesn't know? What if people, right, if everybody here, you come to shul, nobody's going to say, and any sort of greeting, by the way, is included in this. So shalom, Shavua Tov, etc. Or that one should not say. But what if you go somewhere and the person doesn't know, and the person says, oh, hello, or something like that? I remember when I was in London, so we had a non-Jewish security guard who was a little bit exuberant. He was very, very enthusiastic. He was a very nice guy. And every Shabbat, we used to come to shul, and he would stand there. He wouldn't just say hello, right? It would every day he would walk in, wave his hands, and he would say, "Welcome, have a wonderful day." Yeah, I've toned it down a little bit. It was more than that. It was very, very enthusiastic. So I remember we came on Tisha B'Av, and we walk into shul, and he's standing outside of the gate, and he says, "Have a wonderful day." And this wasn't in my shul, somewhere else, but the rabbi said to him, he said, you should just know, this is not a happy day. It's a very, very sad day for us, and you should be just a little bit quiet. So he said, okay. So we walked in, so we walked out, we came back the next morning, and he came out to us and he said, "Have a wonderful day." So that was, and that is a true story. But, so what do you do if somebody comes and greets you and they don't know, and etc.? So he said, "B'miuchad tzarchim lakpid al kach, bein lomdei haTorah, those people who know the halachas, which be careful, we should not greet one another. Ulam, kasher adam she'eno mekir halacha shoel b'shalom. Person who doesn't know the halacha, they say hello, how are you, etc. You don't answer them back, and they're going to be mortally offended. So then we say onim lo b'safal rafa u'b'koved rosh. Again, you don't turn to them and you say, "I'm wonderful, have a wonderful day." You don't say that, but you can answer them softly. You can say what you need to say so they won't get insulted. Like a person who is what we're meant to be. We're distracted, we're disturbed by all the thoughts of the avelut. Of course, not to insult the other person. It's so difficult to judge. But if you know that the person just doesn't know the halakha, if they knew the halakha, they wouldn't be offended and they wouldn't be insulted. You could say, actually, you should know, by the way. They say hello. You say, by the way, we don't say hello today. Okay. If they can accept that, then that's fine. As we said, saying good morning, good evening, Shavua Tov, whatever, that is also included. There are those who say that it's only the word shalom, but most understand that it's any type of greeting. Now, you see somebody you haven't seen for a while, and they've just gotten married or they've had a child or something. Are you allowed to say Mazal Tov? So the quotes here from the Nishmat Avraham, who says you're allowed to say Mazal Tov because that's not a greeting, but that's a bracha, and that is allowed. It's quite a chidush. He says Af lechitzat yad eina bechlal isur shelat shalom. You're allowed to. It's the Hatzvi. He says you're allowed to shake somebody's hand. So you can't say hello, but you could give them a good handshake. Kashem she'en shoalim v'shalom. Kach ein shochim matanot b'Shabbat. We also don't send gifts to one another. The same idea. About tzedakah eina nechshavet k'matana. You're allowed to give tzedakah. לכן מותר אף ואף מצווה לשלוח מאכלים לנזקקים. To send portions to the needy, that would be allowed, and that is even a mitzvah. כדי שיהיה להם מה לאכול בסיום הצום. So they'll have what to eat at the end of the fast. Not just sending gifts, but that's considered sending tzedakah, and that would be permitted. Okay, רבי חנניה בן עקשיא אמר, הקדוש ברוך הוא לצדקות ישראל, לפרח בהם את המצוות, שני אמר חפץ מעציקו, יגדיר